I don't understand how we can ultimately dismantle any of it if we don't stick to a intensely radical politics.
You're not broke if you're taxing rich people.
We break production for profit and we replace it by production for need.
This event is brought to you by Haymarket Books. Now more than ever, it is critical to support independent publishers, independent bookstores, and independent voices. There are two ways you can do this today. First, by buying books from Haymarket at haymarketbooks.org. And secondly, by joining the Haymarket Book Club. The following event will be recorded and shared afterwards on the Haymarket Books YouTube channel. Please subscribe to the channel, like this video now, and share it with as many people as possible. If you like this event, be sure to catch these upcoming events in Haymarket's live stream series. You can register for these upcoming events on the Haymarket Books Eventbrite page. If you miss an event, you can listen to the recording afterward by subscribing to our podcast, Haymarket Live, wherever you get your podcasts. Before we begin, a few housekeeping items. We are moderating the chat, but we cannot guarantee that everyone will observe our community guidelines. People who violate these guidelines will have their comments deleted as quickly as we are able. This event will have live closed captions. Instructions for accessing the captions will be posted in the chat. We should have time for Q&A, so please post your questions in the YouTube chat window, and we'll get to those later in the program. Thanks for joining us today. Our event will begin shortly.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for a reading and conversation with Maya Abu Al-Hayyat and Lena Khalaf Tuffaha. I'm so excited to be here celebrating their gorgeous, gorgeous books that are out this year with the Cleveland State University Press and the University of Akron Press. Please post comments, reactions, questions. We'll leave time for audience members to ask for the Q&A later after they read. And we'll be starting with some readings though. And I want to start and give a warm welcome to Maya Abu Al-Hayyat. Maya was born in 1980 in Lebanon, and she's an Arabic-language Palestinian novelist, poet, and children's book author. She edited the Book of Ramallah, an anthology of short stories published by Akron Press in 2021. Her children's book, A Blue Pond of Questions, was translated into English and published by Penny Candy Books. An English translation of her poetry appeared from Milkweed Editions under the title You Can Be the Last Leaf, translated by Fady Joudah and named a finalist for the National Book Critics Circle Award. Her novel, which we're celebrating today, No One Knows Their Blood Type, is translated by Hazem Jamjoom, was published in October 2024 by the Cleveland State University Poetry Center. Please give a warm welcome to Maya.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Noor. I'm so glad to be here. I will read part of the novel from the chapter called Jumana. In those days, my father was a voice arriving from Spain by telephone. He called almost every month, and his calls turned the mood in the house upside down. If he didn't call when he was supposed to, my aunt would turn unbearably volatile. If several days passed without the awaited phone call, she would haul us to the PLO office in Jabal al-Hussein. We would get into the shared taxi and she would put me on her lap to avoid paying for the additional seat. There would always be a fight with the driver over the 8 piastres she would have to pay for Yara, at which point we would continue the journey on foot as she cursed our father and the driver and the day she was put into this world and everything else. We would reach out the PLO office and the bold man standing guard at the door would ask, "What, Abu Sa'id hasn't called?" She will retell the same story, then ask about a man called Abu Al-Hol, who was usually not in that day. She would then drag us in to see the other man, the one they called Abu Al-Ainain, tall and dark with a head of thick grey hair. Abu Al-Ainain would greet us warmly and tell us, like every other time, how he was a friend of our dad's from the Beirut days and how he knew our mother and us from when we lived in Al-Hamra. Then he would remind Yara, who he used to drive her to the Rosary Sisters nursery in his car, and she would scream because she didn't want to go to school. My aunt had little patience for these stories, interrupting him to tell her own, the same one she would tell to anyone and everyone she would meet for the first or 100th time. This one, she would say, pointed at me, I have raised since she was 9 months old. That one, now pointed to Yara, who would curl her tongue when she was upset, was 3 years old. He sent me only $200. How am I supposed to take care of them with that? She would dry her sweat, moving her hand in the circle around her face, and then adjust the grey headscarf she would tie the Damascus way to display the front stands of her henna hair. I would look at her from my perch on the chair, its leather making my dress right up and stick to my skin. My eyes would fixate on her 2 plump legs, each partitioned by the elastic of her nylon stocking, one with a run down the side, barely holding together with the help of Suha's bank nail polish. Abu Al-Ainain rarely bothered to fight interest until my aunt slid in the silly code to her lament. He is running around after the ladies and leaving his young daughters with me. I have young men in the house. That last phrase was a calculated call to arms, which anyone and everyone was obliged to take up immediately and without hesitation. We would leave the Munazzama office after Abu al-Ainain would give his rude promise to make some calls. I cannot turn my father's voice into feature. He is a man made of sound. I am supposed to be very polite and formal when I speak to him, but I have to call him Baba. It's confusing because my aunt's husband is Baba as well. After all, he does all the things that fathers do. He brings me cream-filled biscuits from the candy factory where he works. Every evening at 7, I wait for him to get home, looking out the window in the small door. When he appears, I watch him descend the hill across from the house, his hand behind his hunchback, wearing khaki in the summer or military fatigue and the black and white kufiye on the cold days. As soon as I spot him, I zero in on his hand, waiting for the moment he will use them to keep his balance as he navigates the steeper and more slippery stretches. I am so excited to see what he's brought to me. One time, it's a telephone that becomes a car and dragged by the handset. Another time, it's a handbag, and yet another, a doll that yells, wah, wah, when flip into its belly. At night, he puts me on his lap and leaves me to play with the hole in his white undershirt, which I diligently widen as he repeats his classical question, should I get you a small dear dear? To which I give my classic response, yes, Baba. That's it.
Thank you so much, Maya. I've been spending time with the book and just hearing your voice in it is so beautiful. And also I'm really in love with the humor and the tenderness in this piece. I really appreciate hearing your work read out loud. I want to extend a warm welcome to Lena Khalaf Tuffaha, who will be reading poems. Lena is a poet, essayist, and translator. She is the author of Water and Salt from Red Hen, which won the 2018 Washington State Book Award. Gan and her sisters, Trio House Press, which is a finalist for the Firecracker Award, and Something About Living, which is what we're celebrating today, from the University of Akron Press, 2024. And it was the winner of the 2022 Akron Poetry Prize. I don't know what dates are anymore. Her writing has been published in journals, including the Los Angeles Review of Books, The Nation, Poets.org, Proteon, and Prairie Schooner, and in anthologies, The Long Devotion and We Call to the Eye and the Nights. Just a beautiful anthology, by the way. She was the translator and curator of the 2022 series Poems from Palestine at the Baffler magazine. She is currently curating a series on Palestinian writers for Words Without Borders entitled Against Silence. For more of her work, visit lenakhalaftufaha.com. Thank you, Lena. So excited to hear from you.
Thank you, Noor, for that lovely introduction. And it was so good to hear you read, Maya. Congratulations on this beautiful novel. I'll just read a few poems from the book. In 2018, some of you may remember, there was an extended, we'll call it nonviolent protest that Palestinians in Gaza organized. The majority of the population in Gaza is in fact refugees, and they decided that they were tired of waiting, so they would march to the border because they wanted to go home. And that was called the Great March of Return. It began at the end of March in 2018. And that was met with horrific violence. It was met with sniper fire by the Israeli occupation forces, and hundreds of people were killed. So the opening poem of the book commemorates those days. Variations on a Last Chance. The fence does not hold. The wire sheds its barbs, softens to silk thread. The snipers run out of bullets. The desert, as it always has, of its own volition, blooms. The snipers are distracted, sexting their girlfriends. The snipers' eyes are blinded by smoke from our burning tires. The snipers wonder if they will ever see the end of us. The fence does not hold. The snipers take a lunch break. The bullets melt in their chambers. The bullets disintegrate when they reach the word press on Yasser's vest. The news finally breaks the stillness around us. The bullets will themselves away from the boy's skull. The boy's sandals sprout wings and he hovers above the bullet's path. The snipers lose interest in shooting at medics evacuating the wounded. The snipers make eye contact with one of us and see. There are enough saline bags at the hospital. The snipers shoot and miss, and miss, and miss. We outrun the snipers. We bury the dead at the fence, let their roots reach the other side of home. The next poem is after the late, great Edward Said. I can get this in a better spot. To be self-evident. Every empire tells its subjects a story of revelation. The trees let down their aging leaves, listless in late drought. The children thrive on filtration, their classroom air and their selfies sanitized. Every empire seems invincible as its borders submerge. Its manicured hillsides incinerate between guaranteed next-day deliveries. Every empire eulogizes its value system, splurges for pyrotechnics, decorates its mausoleums for the holidays. Every empire turns against its colonies, cradling the embassy's crystal in bubble wrap, packing extra treats for the dogs on the evacuation flight home. Every empire promises a revolution against itself. The children are tasked with designing the future, growing walls of hydroponic greens, rebranding old protest anthems. Every empire denies the iceberg it crashes into, hires a chorus, funds the arts. Every empire sings itself a lullaby. I'll just read it. On translation. Even when he told her it was imminent, Mira refused to break up with him. Readers might be moved if they imagine the fiancé had a fatal injury or a terminal illness. Mira tells the reporter that her fiancé entrusted a counselor at the courthouse where he tried to break off their engagement with his last will and testament. Tell her she's the best girl in the world. Tell her she's the most beautiful. Tell her these are my exact words. The word martyrdom fails Mira's heart and her beloved's. The word trauma does too. Mira says sometimes he would talk about settling down, about a home, but he also kept trying to let her go. You have a life to live. You're too young to be a widow. His last words to Mira are where language breaks. أما أنا طريقي معروف شو هو. To translate is to believe there is a reader. When he turned to leave the courthouse, the counselor ran after him with the final question in her arsenal, but the drones circling overhead drowned out his reply. Don't you want to wait to see her before you go? The narrow alleys of Old Nablus are crosshatched in light and jasmine vines. That a heart will not back down when an armored vehicle barrels towards it is also a love story. Mira said, I'll be a martyr's wife then. In the final hour, her father called the fiancé and translated, listen, son, whatever happens to you happens to us. I think maybe just two more. Let's see. I recently visited Amman, where I spent many childhood summers, where my mother's and father's family live. And in Amman, my mom's family is from a neighborhood called Jabal Webde, a beautiful old neighborhood where many writers and artists lived. And it's becoming, to use an American phrase, gentrified. So I had a moment. This is entitled Golden, and it has an epigraph from an American tourist's comment on Instagram, which reads, Webde is definitely the cutest neighborhood we visited. So much culture. Say this girl in earlier editions, drowned in this particular light. Say it's possible to walk again the roads and uneven pavements where I and my mother were children. Say this hillside, its summer adornments. Say we pass beneath jasmine, catch its petals in our hair. Say even the plastic bags caught in the linden branches. Now the neighbor's home is a cafe serving golden milk to all manner of mercenaries. It was so recently untranslated. The faces in the windows knew the stories of the streets below. Say clothesline water arrives. Say morning newspapers. Say lines of mourners at the funeral tent 3 days in a row. Say simmering pots announce their cumin, coriander, alchemies marbling over a low flame. Say we don't trend. Say we guard the sites of memory, smile to ourselves, pass the falafel place, the tailor, the greengrocer, neither confirm nor deny. Say we never exhibit our grandmother's sewing machines in a museum, never donate our parents' faded love letters. Say we were unremarkable, huddled together in modest living rooms, waiting on a kettle to boil, burning lemon rind on kerosene stoves. And I'll end with the last poem in the book, which is entitled, in my accent, Du'a, but I've come to read it in the Ghazan pronunciation, Dagga. At the restaurant, the loudest sound is the ocean a few blocks away. A meteor shower is forecast, a once-in-a-lifetime event, but the freeway, flush with headlights, precludes us from viewing. The stars fall silently over us and the waves and the commuters. We review the menu. We help the waitress pronounce Dagga. We talk about aging and what is left to risk. Love is paying attention, I remark, and you repeat it to me. Love is also the father who plants an olive tree for every newborn, trusting they will grow up to harvest it. Love is the elderly woman who stood inside Damascus Gate, knowing the settlers were on a rampage, knowing what her body would have to endure. Love is a story we never tire of telling, just as Shireen told with a microphone and a camera. Love lives in many rooms. In the kitchen where Nadia teaches using only the Arabic names of ingredients, and in the car where Lema embroiders wine-colored roosters and cypresses on ancestral linen, waiting to pick up her children from school. Love is the children we carried at the protests, leading their own marches in the rain. Let the stars fall. I have no idea what hope is, but my people have taught me a million ways to love. Thank you.
Wow, that last line. I have no idea what hope is, but my people have taught me a million ways to love. Is so beautiful. Thank you so much, Lena. I want to begin the conversation with, can you both just talk about the process of writing your books and what it's been like to publish during the ongoing genocide? Lena, so many of these poems are probably years old at this point, but are still relevant today. And can you talk about what it's like to just see them out in the world during this awful, just the violence that we are witnessing every single day?
Sure. You're right. I mean, the poems were written over many years. That has been haunting for me, and that's not a new condition for Palestinian writers. You know, we're trapped in I think we have our own verb tense, the past continuous. We live in the past continuous. And so it's been really haunting to have lines of my own poems playing in my head while I watch events unfold and seeing how they could have been written this month or this year. And at the same time, in a strange way, I hope that the relevance of the poems make them, provide any kind of contribution to Palestinian presence. That's the only small comfort, that maybe because they speak to an ongoing condition that since the book has been published and if it's read, it can offer a Palestinian voice and a Palestinian perspective against what is happening.
Maya, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I wrote this novel actually 10 years ago, and it was just translated 4 years ago or 10 years ago, and we were looking for a publisher for too many years, and we signed the contract before the events 2 years ago, and it was published this year, and at the same month, after 1 year of the genocide. I wrote this novel after getting birth to my twins. I was in a very critical situation at that point. I was questioning everything about motherhood, the question of Palestine, my life, my identity, me living in Nablus and Ramallah and Jerusalem and Tunis and Lebanon and all these cities, all the written. And I was really tough with myself and with the language and with the literature. I was looking for new ways and answers, and for the characters, to see the events from a new perspective. And at that point, I was harsh, and maybe because I had I get birth to, and that question of dealing with daily maternalhood, daily things, and makes me questioning everything. And the second intifada was just finished, and everything was uncertain. I was uncertain, but at the same point, I was very sharp and tough. And I think that this novel, although I wrote two novels before, but I think this was the one that I have like very critical and tough choices for the characters and for the language, also the Arabic language, the way the sentences were putting, and the chapters. It was very condensed, and at the same time it gave you lots of things in the very small amount of pages. يعني. Yeah, but يعني, I was having discussion with friends, and I was telling her that I use poetry to empathy and sympathize with everybody, with everything. Like I feel lots of love and sympathize with everything, all the human being, all the creatures and the moving in Palestine, because I feel like I feel with the children, the trees, the animals. It's like it's terrifying to live in such places. But at the same time, in novels, for example, I am very harsh and very tough and very critical. I don't know why, but using these two forms make me different person, or with different perspective. But I like that, actually. I like, I can play with forms and format, يعني, to make new point of view and new perspective to everything. Because I go from everything goes from very, very small and detail to go around, يعني occupation is not killing, is not pumping, it's what they do in daily life, what they do in your mind, how you cross the street, how you drink water, how you take money from the bank. It's the daily life routine. And today I was just remembering one incident. I'm sorry, I'm talking a lot maybe, but I need to do it. Today I was remembering me at the checkpoint. I was pregnant with my twins, and I was in my 8th month. And it was at that area, the Kalandia checkpoint was like you need to wait for 1.5 hours to reach the Bawabi, yani the gate. And at that point, when I reached that point, the gate, they closed it, and they asked me to go to the another gate. So I went to the another gate. I was crying. I cried like the whole time waiting for on the other gate. So I needed another 1 hour to reach the gate, and they told me that I need to go, my ID, that I need to go and change the date or something like this. And I was crying and I lost my mind. But now I am thinking about it, and it's nobody know this. Nobody talk about these details. Maybe except in novels, except in literature, nobody will understand my crying. I remember it today, and I am shaking, but nobody understand it. And this is occupation, I think. This is, they occupy your mind, your memories, your walking, your motherhood, So yeah, that's it.
Thank you for sharing that with us. I mean, you're right. It's about those daily disturbances and interruptions in our daily lives, and thinking about how you've been able to grapple with that in your novel and reflect that in your novel is so important. And I'm thinking about, Lena, just as you've been emphasizing, like these poems could have been written today. And I love that phrase, the past continuance, because there is just anything that could have been written 40, 50 years ago. I was recently reading Darwish's Memory for Forgetfulness, and just feeling like, wow, this is speaking to what is happening right now in Lebanon. Can either of you reflect for a moment on how this moment specifically, and the horror and atrocity that we have been seeing on such a, I think, large scale. How has that changed your writing? How do you come to the page? Maya, you're talking about, being very sharp and tough with both the English with the Arabic language in your novel, and also with the decisions that your characters are making. Has the writing and when you're writing in fiction, has that become more tough, or is there more tenderness that has entered the page?
Yeah, like writing about pain. I'm in that phase right now. How to write about pain and not making it dramatic, and at the same time make it readable and literature, and like to respect yourself as a writer. It's very tricky actually, and very important for us as a Palestinian. Yani, since the beginning of this, like I remember that I was crying for 4 months. And then I had to stop. And so I withdraw myself from everything, and like I wake up, I open my mind, I open my eyes, I see videos for burning kids, and then my eyes go full of tears, and then I breathe it out, and I close my phone, and I repeat the same day over and over and over. I have one day that is a repetition since the beginning of what is happening until now, but I was like 4 or 5 months ago. I stopped sleeping. I don't sleep. I have anxiety. but at the same time I don't see or watch anything because I am afraid. Because what I am seeing right now, I feel like very luxury that I have this feeling. I am very luxury to feel like I can't say that I have the same boring day over and over. I can eat, I can drink my coffee, I can feel the breast, I can cry. And like I have a lot of friends who only live in emergency thoughts, emergency food, emergency, like everything is like it's not their things. They are not the same anymore. But I have the luxury to live that. And I'm thinking a lot actually, how you as like you have your personal grief and personal healing, and you have this collective grief and collective healing. And I think, we can't deal with these two together. The thing, you will still grieve as a person until the whole collective things stop grieving in one day. But that day is not coming yet. So whatever we say or whatever we do or whatever we trying to write or to heal as a individual, we will never have it until we have the ultimate healing, the collective healing. In order, I think that's why lots of my literature, my writing, is not accepted by the Palestinian right now, because what I'm doing is like I'm trying to heal, and I'm trying to make the Palestinian like hearing their stories, which is sometimes it's tough, and it's not the right time to do it. That we need a lot of compassion and a lot of sympathy and a lot of hugging and crying and all the drama that we can do until we reach the point that we can listen to ourselves with like from like المنطق يعني, like reason, to be reasonable and to have the real talk يعني. But we are still in a phase that I think all the Palestinians need to make like a big demonstration, go out in the streets and cry and cry and cry. This, and maybe until we have no more crying anymore, because we have a lot to grieve on. We have a lot to talk, to scream. all what we are doing right now is screaming. All our poetry is screaming. It's not poetry. It's screaming because we are hurted. We have all this wounded, and we can touch it because it's hurt. It's a lot of hurt, a lot of wounded. We all of us in Gaza, in diaspora, in Palestine, in Jerusalem, in West Bank, and it's all we are all waiting for our destiny. Palestinian in West Bank and Jerusalem and everywhere they are waiting for destiny, and it looks we can see it from afar, but we know that it's coming toward us.
Yeah, I think to add to that, here in diaspora, in the United States especially, there's another layer of just unspeakable shame in complicity. And and that can seem sort of like this lofty conversation, but it's not. It's very literal. We have always known how the lives we build here are weaponized against the people we love at home. But it's never been laid bare quite as extreme a way as it has this year, right? And so in addition to exactly what you described, Maya, that just falling into this abyss of the repeated day over and over and over again since October 7, and there's a way in which I personally feel, and I know many friends have had versions of this experience, like I feel like I've fallen out of the world. I've fallen off the edge of the world into this abyss that mostly other Palestinians are in, some folks who understand at a deep level as well, but largely Palestinians. And I don't know where else I want to be, because what is happening is so far beyond language. I mean, I feel like the word genocide should make everything stop. But somehow, America's contribution to human history is that we get to coexist with genocide and keep going. And that is amazing to me. And so the fact that that's what's playing out in front of us with the weapons and dollars that are provided by this country in which we live and make our lives, and that everything we have tried as desperately as we have tried to stop it or slow it down or gum up the machine or halt it has failed. It's very hard to have any room left psychically to think about or engage with anything else when that is part of your daily life. I don't know how to compartmentalize that and make it a small thing that I do and think about alongside these other tasks like that. The sort of farcical, there's like an Alice in Wonderland feeling to this year. The sizes are all warped and misshapen, and I feel like we're walking in and out of doors and seeing bizarre things, and you're just looking around like, can everybody else see this? Does this look okay to you? And so that sense of unfolding shock, in addition to unfolding grief, is paralyzing, and trying to navigate through that and remain somehow a useful and engaged human being has been excruciating. And then there's also just the reality of, but we also always knew this. This is not a surprise. The Nakba is a condition, it's not an event. And every Palestinian at a deep level understands that this is where the Zionist project was always going. They have been explicit about it. It's imprinted on their coins, the map, the Greater Israel map, that is a very open admission of a colonial expansionist agenda. So it's not really news. It's just the idea that the world funded it and enabled it and stepped back and expected us all to just watch it is so, the shock is still reverberating, I think, in each of our bodies and minds. So for me, I haven't found the ability to write a lot this year. Like I have this book that I've been reading from, but the book was written, many years before. I have found it extremely difficult to write. So how I've worked around that is to spend as much time as I can with other Palestinians writing, whether publishing, editing, supporting it in any way I can, Palestinians in Gaza and Palestine, and also in the United States, and to try to be of service, to anybody who can write and speak. And I don't know what the next phase will be like, because, I mean, not to use and abuse language, but we are really in uncharted territory.
Yeah, we are 100%. And I mean, as you say, everything should have stopped with genocide, and living in this country is to suddenly coexist with genocide. And nothing has stopped, and you go about your day in an ordinary way. And with this grief, Maya, I love what you had to say about it's not poetry, it's screaming, and about trying to, when you come into the page, separate the insane amounts of grief that you're feeling, and the upset and the anger and the despair, and then create something out of that and have that separation. And then, so I'm wondering, and then also, Lena, what you're talking about with just not even being able to process, to not be able to write. I've been in that place too, of just, I feel frozen. I'm wondering, and it's so difficult to have a question of beyond, but as we deal with this personal grief, the personal healing, the collective grief, the collective healing, how are you using literature? How do you see literature's role in this current state of violence? And that could be reflecting on authors that you've been reading currently, or ways that you see your writing moving in the future. Can you both talk a little bit about that?
Maya, do you want to go first, or?
I lost my mind then for the moment. No, but listen, and I usually I try to be like in literature, and I'm like I have like a very متحيزة يعني، أو إني كتير متحيزة للأدب. Like you can translate it. like but at the same يعني أنا I feel like everything comes from personal.
Biased towards literature.
Biased to literature. Yeah.
So there's like a belief in it, right? You're bringing, and like a hope.
In my, I don't believe in hope, and I don't believe in hope. I have phobia. I have a whole poem called I have a phobia called hope. No, but Anna, I believe in sharp thinking. I believe in knowledge. Like I believe that what can like save a person who's living in tent right now, who has a very difficult time, is to read or to listen to literature. I swear to God. I know it's very like it seems very silly, and it seems very, yeah, but it's true. Like poetry, we need poetry right now. We need literature right now. We need to hear other stories. We need to sympathize with others. We need to feel like life is not just us. It's beyond. That we can reach out. That I have friends, even if it's not true, but I have friends in books and literature. I can hear stories. I can hear. Poetry can change the whole world to us. Really. Can make the suffer less suffering, if I can say it. So now I know it's sometimes it's luxury. Even you can't force yourself to read. You can't force yourself. Right now it's like just now I start listening because I felt like I am going crazy. I'm really going crazy. So I start listening to podcasts, and like I just discovered podcasts. So I just discovered hearing poetry, and so I think it's helped me a lot. I have two projects, actually, two novels projects. One of them is it's very, very strange because I moved from house to house this year, and now I live in Shireen Abu Akleh house. it's the strangest things that can happen to a novelist. Yeah. Yeah. And it's very, maybe the house also like hunting me and make me feel like what I'm feeling, but it's like exactly like double everything in my mind and in my heart. But I am writing a new novel about living in Shireen's house. It's so maybe that will save me in a way, or make my mind like because it's also talking about the how you deal with these things, what you should do in a place that the only way to deal with is to escape. You know, it's like the only logical way for us right now to do is traveling or go out of this. But at the same time, you have this moral question and moral and like who you are in this, what is your contribution, what you can do, and is it really the only solution is to escape or to stay? So I have all this like the new project is talking about that, about this question, this big question, and I think it can help me in a way, as literature helped me all my life. I like from I was very young, and I thought that everything is happening to me because I am a poet. So maybe it can, everybody can has his own things to believe and to say it's happening because I am that, and it's illusion. Maybe some people will say it's hope, but maybe also it's an illusion. But it makes us running and for like going forward. Maybe, yeah. Voice.
Oh, Lena, you're muted.
Sorry about that. I'm looking forward to this novel, Maya. You've piqued my interest.
Me
For
too.
sure.
It's crazy.
Yeah, I think. I mean, I don't feel comfortable making any lofty claims about anything anymore. But I will say that my personal way of coping, also all through my life, has been literature. For others, it will be something else. Music, a different art form, work, whatever. So yeah, literature seems to be a condition I can't quite shake, for better or for worse. But I am in that kind of frozen state now because I think none of the language that I have access to, languages, and then language as a kind of a meta concept, feel like they're meeting the moment yet. And so I think that it's important still to take responsibility for doing more than just recording. Like, yes, there's a role for recording what's happening. And a lot of the ways that those of us who didn't get to grow up in Palestine come to know Palestine is through literature. So literature has an important role to play, not just in describing, but in giving us access to places and times that don't exist anymore, and to the weather of those places and times. So I understand that responsibility and I take it seriously, but literature does more than that. And that piece of doing more, that piece of kind of remaking the world, I believe in, and I'm struggling to get there at the moment, given the magnitude of what's happening around us. But I will say, there are several writers who I follow in Gaza who are doing exactly what Maya described. That commitment to writing and storytelling and being with others who need that in their lives is so incredible. And watching how it's a part of human dignity to not just be, trapped inside the body and limited to the very basic acts of material survival, that we are storytellers and singers and listeners and writers, that we have a right to that as human beings, to not let that go. So I'm somewhere in the morass. I will say though that there is a concern about not just how to write, but who we're writing for. Like here in the US, that line in my poem on translation about to translate, you have to believe there is a reader. I'm really in conversation with readers because I'm interested in readers, not voyeurs, not people who are just here to observe Palestinian pain from a kind of comfortable distance. And I'm not interested in performing Palestinian pain for them. So I think a lot of what will come next will probably be an investigation less of Palestine and more of America and who these readers might be.
Yeah, I love that line so much. To translate is to believe there is a reader. And there is so much of this interrogation of like, what is it as you see people just sharing our trauma on Instagram and online, and just it feels it's actually disgusting, while also being complicit in it. And that is something that I think we need to be thinking about and interrogating. On that note, well, thank you both so much for reading and sharing your thoughts. I haven't seen audience questions, but I hope that everyone will pick up No One Knows Their Blood Type and Something About Living and spend time with these beautiful works. And I really, really appreciate our audience for tuning in and listening, and for both of you for being so patient and such excellent readers of your work, and reflecting on the current moment with us together.
Thank you, Noor and Maya.
Thank you, Lena. Lena, we are both from